that the teacher has given that day. I think that kids can move a little bit at their own pace and at their own schedule. But having a schedule and having some routines, I think, is important.
Thank you. That's helpful. And for those of you who can see the chat, there are some links in there to the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District website where you can find some of these materials and the supports for parents. And anyone else who has questions or comments for Superintendent Diffenbaugh, please do use the chat function to pop those up there. I wanted to ask you about what community members might be able to do to help support the families who are in need of shelter, or if you have any thoughts along those lines.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and one we get a lot. I think one that I've let people know is that the food bank is providing, over 500 bags. Well, actually, between Marina and Seaside, I'd say over 1,000 bags of food every single week. And so contributions to the food bank is certainly, going to help our kids through that partnership. We have a family resource center located at the Monterey Adult School, which was formerly Cabrillo Elementary School. And our homeless liaison works out of there and says there's a great need for personal hygiene, toiletry type projects, diapers for kids, feminine products. And so I think that'd be a place that if you had extra things, or, when you shop, you grab a few extra things for families, you could drop it off at our family resource center at Cabrillo. The housing thing is a little bit more complex and something that I'm trying to learn a little bit more about how to do it. But my sense is if we could raise money or dedicate money towards either converting one of our gyms into a shelter, right, to house some of our families, that could be one avenue to that we could work with. The second would be at the existing motels that people already rent out through the vouchers. If we could raise money to extend their stays, right now, from my understanding, it's 16 days. And what I heard from our homeless liaison, and again, I'm learning this, but is weekends the price goes up, and so it takes more of their voucher out, so that families end up staying Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, find alternative places to stay for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then come back Monday, because that extends their ability. So it's not ideal in that we would really want them to have, more permanency. So, my thought is if we could raise enough money, could you have a block of rooms that are dedicated to MPUSD families from now until June 1st, and they could just count on it, is a thought. But again, I don't know how the system works, so I'm still trying to figure that out and trying to figure out if that's even a possibility. But I think between public funds, private assistance, and getting a hotel on board or a motel on board to both will help them in terms of their room occupancy, but also a civic service to the families. I think we could try to make that work in some capacity. So those are my thoughts currently, but I'm definitely open to other ideas as well. I'm learning a lot about this system, and and I feel for our families who are really going through a lot right now, and just trying to make it to the next day. And I think could really use some more permanency, something to count on in terms of their shelter. I think would help a lot.
I'm thinking about, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about there's a housing, a home matching service for seniors. And I'm thinking I'd love to be able to just put together a housing matching service for these families, just sort of a pop-up, let's figure it out thing, because even staying in the hotels or the motels through June 1st, that's it's just an approach that
Right.
takes us to a certain period of time, and then folks are pretty much, back in the same situation.
Right.
I do want to just mention that there are a number of elected school trustees who are part of this meeting, and I want to just mention the ones I'm aware of. And any of you, if you have thoughts about what you'd like to see us do to make life better for the schools and the students and the community, please feel free to use the chat. From MPC, also some key staff people from MPUSD. Looks like Melanie Allen, a school nurse, and the social and emotional manager, Erin Wood, are also here. I'm sure you have some insights, so feel free to pop some comments or difficult questions to the superintendent. Also, I do want to kind of return to this return to normal idea, and I'd love to get your thoughts about how the public school environment, the education, even the community might, we might, how things might look different, that we could take advantage of this experience to try to implement in the community.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think so. There's a community school model that has been out there and has been in place in a number of places across the country, where they're really trying to integrate services. Has the school as a hub, but they've integrated. Monterey County Behavioral Health, for example, could have an office at a school site, maybe a health center located on, at the school site, and where social services, is integrated as well. And it really serves as a hub for the families in the community. The school is open much longer hours. You might run your ESL classes out of your school site. You might run parenting classes out of your school site. There might be community gatherings out of your school site. And so it's always been a model that I've been attracted to. And I think this has just reaffirmed and kind of maybe sped up my sense of urgency to move into that direction. I think that school centers of the community, and that we need to integrate resources more. And I know there's a lot that goes into that. It's not easy, and it costs money, and it's breaking down barriers and walls and all sorts of things like that. But I think that that's the direction that we have to head, because the reality is that, as you started out, if kids are hungry, if they have issues in terms of social emotional, support that's needed, and we're not able to meet those basic needs, then, a lot of what we're trying to do, academically is not going to get as far. And so I think there needs to be more of an integrated approach. And that's kind of where I think we need to go moving forward.
Thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense, and it reminds me that at the county level, we are aware that there are health disparities based
Mhm.
on where people live and their incomes, and essentially, to the extent we're not addressing these fundamental needs of kids and their families, we're putting people who are already struggling to survive, we're putting we're making it generational. We're just making it harder because the kids are not going to be able to learn as effectively.
Bright Futures is kind of a collective impact model, and so I do think they've kind of set out some countywide ambitious goals, and then are helping to track, progress towards those goals. I think there may be more to do on kind of the just nuts and bolts of getting of helping to facilitate some of those cross-boundary collaborations. That is I think where we need to focus, and maybe Bright Futures can help us in that regard. Because I think for certainly as a superintendent, the last thing you want to do is sit in another meeting. There's just too much to do. There's just too much urgency out there. But I do think that there's some convening that they could do, or an entity such as that could do, that could bring us together, and break it down. I think the county is what is there's, as more than anyone, there's such diversity in this county, and so many different types of needs depending on community and that type of thing. And so sometimes I think that when you try to do something county-wide, you may not understand the specific context of a sub community within the county that may need to be treated differently, or the collaboration may need to look differently in that area. But yes, I think that they're one entity that certainly could help.
Right. And when you think about doing something county-wide, it can be, you start to look at all the locations and it becomes overwhelming.
Right.
Whereas if you can, pick a more limited sphere, maybe that it's more possible.
Mhm.
And I do want to note that Francine Rod is on the call, who heads up First Five in Monterey County, and I imagine sits on the Bright Futures as well as the Bright Beginnings, on some of those meetings. So Francine, you can let them know we're very interested in what really working on what Bright Futures has been embarked upon. As we come out of the shelter in place, it would be really great to have some of these ideas actually happen, so that the families and the kids can get some of the supports that they need. I want to note that in the chat, there has been a link to the website. Again, it's Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, but it's where people can find the family and student portals. So if you're a parent, or know someone who is, that's a good place to get the resources that Superintendent Diffenbaugh has been talking about. Let's see, any other, here's a comment. Monterey County Office of Education is currently convening a digital divide task force that is focusing on short-term and long-term goals to address our equity issues here in Monterey County. Just some information for anybody on the call who might want to participate and support that work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions that people have for Superintendent Diffenbaugh? Okay, and I imagine that I don't know if the comment about the Monterey County Office of Education work came from Deneen Gus, but she's the superintendent for the Monterey County Office of Education, and she is on the call. And maybe